just had a lovely chat off the air about football. We won't get into that. We'll have to do that for another day. I think we could call that episode Three Guys and One Chick talking football. Anyway, welcome and welcome back. Only true democracy and talk. I'm Leslie Marshall. And joining us, we have not one but two guests from the Teamsters Local 120. They represent over 15,000 workers in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, North, and South Dakota. They are Scott Kroona and Brad Lusk. Now, Scott works as a business agent for Teamsters Local 120 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's been in this role for 8 years, and he's been a Teamster for 28 years, including 10 serving as a union steward. And before becoming a steward, Scott worked as a truck driver in the construction industry. And Brad, he is the first shift flex operator at Actus Nutrition. Now, that's formerly Foremost Farms, in case you're like, what's that name? They're in Sparta, Wisconsin. He's worked at the facility for 12 years. He's been a Teamster since he started, and Brad became a union steward just over a year ago. Wonderful to have both gentlemen with us on the program. You guys okay with first names, or would you prefer me to be formal and do Mr. Kroona and Mr.
Oh,
Lusk?
not at all, Leslie.
Brad's good.
Scott is fine. Yeah.
Even,
Thanks so
even though
much
I'm a
for
New
having
England
us on.
Patriots fan, I can be on a first name basis with you guys.
There you go.
Well, I want to talk, and first, I want to direct people to the website. You guys have your own website, teamsterslocal120.org. So you, during the breaks, or later, you can just find out more information that we may not cover today. And these websites, I got to say, Teamsters websites are a plethora of information, just a lot of good stuff there, and a good way to learn beyond what you're hearing and what you're watching. Guys, thank you for being with us. I know that you're very, very busy. Now, the Wisconsin Teamsters have authorized strikes at Actus Nutrition and Foremost Farms. Basically, you have workers, dairy workers, who are pushing back against what anybody in their right mind would push back against, in my opinion, and I think most Americans would agree. When you have corporations at a time like this, when people are saying everything's getting more expensive, and not even looking at what's going to happen with premiums for some people that have health care that may not be provided for their employer because they're not union workers. Union workers get that health care, but what do they want to do right now? They want to cut. They want to make cuts to health care. When cutting healthcare, when we don't know what's coming down the pipe the first of the year, they want to cut pensions when prices are going up and the future is very uncertain, and other protections. So let's talk about this. You have right there at Actus Nutrition and the two Foremost farms. You have over 150 workers there alone, right? Let's just start right there with Scott.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for having us on, Leslie. It's a real honor to be on your show. So, yeah, in Western Wisconsin, Wisconsin just known for its dairies, and we do represent multiple dairies in that area. Specifically, this one that we're talking about in Sparta, you're talking about 40 workers who are standing up against corporate greed. I mean, that's really what it is. These guys, they enjoyed a contract under Foremost Farms, a mature contract, one that had been established over a number of years, and they worked hard, voted these contracts in, maybe took some concessions on things like wages in order to build up things like their pensions, their health care coverages, just like you talked about. And it was literally pulled out from underneath them when this Foremost Farms sold the facility to a place called Actus Nutrition based out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And they have several other dairies in the area, and they chose not to honor that contract. There was language in the contract, successor language in the contract, and they just flat out ignored it. And we protested that through the grievance process. It's in arbitration right now. We're waiting on a decision, but we're not going to stand by and let big corporations like this and let corporate greed just run right over the top of our members and the good hardworking men and women of Western Wisconsin.
This is why the Teamsters are a wonderful organization, because you fight hard for your workers. And I've seen things go on for years and you usually prevail in the end. I say usually like 99.999% of the time. Brad, these individuals that are going to be striking, that are being affected with this corporate greed, these cuts that, are really hurting somebody, trying to make ends meet and trying to, just, make a living for their family. They're employed at three locations, but these three locations just, they're pretty special because they're critical to dairy production and processing throughout Western Wisconsin, correct?
Yep. I mean, farmers got to milk cows every day. It's got to go somewhere. So it's pretty important to keep these plants open and running and keeping the workers happy.
I know some people, Brad, were, have read about, and I have read about protein facilities, like a protein facility in Sparta. Can you explain for people that, aren't as aware and educated on the dairy business, what that does, what a protein facility does that Actus currently is operating there in Sparta?
So we take a byproduct off of cheese plants. It's called whey,
Hmm.
and we get the protein out of that, runs through a dryer into a powder, and that gets shipped all over as a ingredient in some of the products that are sold at major stores.
That's what we're putting in our protein shakes, right? Whey
Yep.
protein, in
Yeah.
our scoop. We always look for whey protein. Now, Foremost also, Scott, still continues to run a couple of plants, and those are cheese processing plants in Rickland Center and Lancaster, correct? Are these being affected by these cuts under this umbrella and under this sale from Foremost to Actus?
So no, those two facilities are still being operated under Foremost Farms. And so we're currently in negotiations with those locations separately from Sparta. Sparta is the one that was sold, and that's the one that our main concern right now is on those workers in Sparta. It's just what this company, this Actus Nutrition, has done to those workers is unconscionable. They ignored the union contract that they knew very well was there, right? And so we're trying to get those guys a fair contract. Really, when it comes down to it, that's really what we want. And the two main issues are, like you had already mentioned, the healthcare. They enjoyed Teamster, Team Care healthcare, and this company just wants to maintain every bit of control, and they want to put those guys into a company plan that they have exclusive control over and can change the conditions and the terms of that plan at any time they want. They don't want them in a pension plan because they frankly don't have a say in what happens and cannot change that because those are guaranteed benefits that those members would enjoy. And under a company 401k that they maintain 100% control of, it's just frankly there's no protection there that, as you well know, what a union contract can offer. So we just want a fair contract, and that's what we're fighting for. And these guys are willing to walk out and stand on the street and 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 would rather stand on the street than work under a contract that doesn't have these protections. And they're willing to do it. And as you well know, the Teamsters will stand behind them, and we have their back, every step of the way.
Brad, just 30 days before selling the Sparta plant to Actis, and of course, nobody says to the workers, "How do you feel about this? Let's have a vote." Do you want to do this?
Yeah.
And to me, it's such a betrayal, right? You go to a job interview, for a certain position. You're working for a company. This is the company you want to work for. This is the job you want to be in. Here are the rules. Now, of course, things can change, but this is beyond changing because when you have a sale and you have a finalized contract, less than a month with the Teamsters, and like Scott had said, there is successor language. Now, I've only done a couple of semesters of law school, but this is pretty much law school 101. Actus can argue this is not worth the paper it's written on, but it is very valuable, the paper it's written on, because it is a legally binding contract that's supposed to protect those workers. So, Brad, I would imagine you're there, you have the workers' ears. What are they saying? Do they feel completely first of all, what a great way to have a new company have all their employees hate them from the start,
Yeah.
right? Hey, welcome, welcome. We're going to treat you like crap. We're not going to honor what you were told is going to happen with this transition.
Yeah. The attitude there is very low. It was very devastating. We were so excited to have this contract with Foremost. And then, like you said, 30 days later, they come in and say, yep, we're selling. And then we find out that Actus is not taking the contract. And they did not start out on a good foot for sure. Um,
Uh,
we we
Most
want to
definitely.
work hard for the company. We're willing to work hard, but we just want to be treated fairly. That's all. I mean, I
That's
don't think
not
we're
too.
asking for too much.
And you're not. Also, because it's not like they're saying these are demands and this is something new and this is something that they're, bringing to the, bargaining table. No, this is something that was already agreed upon and in writing with that successor language. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with these two fine gentlemen and we're going to talk more about what Actus is doing at this plant in Sparta. And what they're doing is they're completely ignoring and violating the terms of a legally binding contract that screws more hardworking American workers in the dairy industry in Wisconsin. We'll be back right after this. Hey, we are back. How you doing? Happy Tuesday. I'm Leslie Marshall. Welcome or welcome back. Only true democracy and talk. Thank you for listening, watching, whether you do it live or, you're watching later after you taped at your convenience, or just, taking a listen. You got to listen up to what's happening here because it's you got to stand up for injustice. My parents taught me that, and I think most of us know that's the right thing to do. I think that's the American way, and this is an injustice. What's happening to these workers in the great state of Wisconsin, and Teamsters Local 120. We are talking with Scott Kroona and Brad Lusk. For Local 120. Scott works for them in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we mentioned that Brad is flex operator at Actus, which formerly was Foremost Farms in Sparta. They sold to Actus and they came up with an agreement so that their workers would be protected. And Actus is basically, sorry, sticking the middle finger up to that contract and the workers by wanting to cut their healthcare benefits, not just cut, change the entire healthcare program that they have. They have a really great healthcare plan with the Teamsters. A union healthcare plan is going to be better than most corporate plans. And corporate plans are going to try and nickel and dime you and give you the least healthcare for the least amount of money for them, so they have more money for their pocket. And then, of course, their pensions. You just shouldn't touch what people work so hard and pay into throughout their lives. Getting back to the gentleman, thank you for holding and getting back. Actus, Scott, have presented what they call their last, best, and final offer. And then, of course, the workers said, okay, we're going to strike in 10 days. You're not going to screw, with our health care, our pensions, picket line protections, and maintenance of standards language. Can you expound a little bit more about some of that language? Because I think people fully understand cuts to health care and screwing with somebody's health care package and their pensions. We know what about picket line protections, and corporations always try to mess with that. But what are these maintenance of standards language that these workers are also striking over that negatively would impact them as workers in this field and for this company?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, this started for me. I jumped into this process in June, bargaining with the company, as we talked about. Trying to get to a contract. A lot of the boilerplate stuff we got through, but at the end of the day, these guys had a vote to respond to the company's last best and final offer on December 1st. And in that last best and final offer, you get to that last best and final offer when you've literally bargained to the point where the company says, we're not willing to give any more. This is as far as we're willing to go. And so what was left out of that offer was obviously, like we talked about, the central state's pension, the team care health care, but also those maintenance of standards language. So the maintenance of standards is something like it's a help, an aid to protect in past practice situations. Something like if your company gave you a Christmas bonus, right? It's the holidays right now. If they give you a Christmas bonus every year, and then that was the standard at your company, and then they agreed on maintenance of standards language, that would mean they agree to maintain that standard that has been happened for years. And then going forward, if the company did similar to what you know you would be scared, somebody like Actus, the way they've treated these members, they're going to pull the rug out from under them. That maintenance of standards allows you to, through the grievance and arbitration procedure, challenge the takeaway of something like a Christmas bonus. And it allows these members a voice in the workplace and a way to say, hell no, we're not going to take that. You don't get the only say in this. So that's what that language is intended to protect. And that's one of the things that the company, Actus Nutrition, said we're not going to put in this offer.
Brad, the members negotiated without a doubt in good faith, and they secured a strong agreement. So the workers, the Teamsters members, held up their end of the deal. No wonder they're ready to hit the street because they want to get what's rightfully theirs. And Tom has Tom Erickson, president of Local 120 and director of the Teamsters Warehouse Division, has said as much. Brad, are they just, again, are they in complete shock? They're like, because I would think, wait a minute, this was negotiated in good faith. This was a strong agreement. We had an agreement, both sides agree, and now we're holding up our end of the deal and you are not. Brad?
Yeah, there's a lot of frustration. A lot of guys, even early on, were like, we got to hit the streets like right away and hit these guys because we're getting screwed over. Our healthcare, we got guys that are saying that's another car payment or even like a mortgage payment a month just for this insurance. And it's hitting them
Yes.
hard. I got guys saying they're making less now than they did 20 years ago just because of this insurance. So yeah, there's a lot of frustration, and we're if we don't get the health care that we deserve, we're gonna hit the streets.
Absolutely, as you should. Scott, I'm wondering, who is advising this Actus company? Because if I were advising them, I would tell them you are headed into a fight that you can't win. That I'm sorry, that to me, 2 + 2 is 4. This is a legally binding contract. These terms were agreed upon. As a matter of fact, the sale could be reversed if depending on the lawyers involved. And on your side of the aisle, they could maybe fight hard enough to say, well, then the sale is null and void because this was a part of the sale. This is part of the transition. These workers are part of this corporation. Do you scratch your head and say who's advising them? Because look, I know it may not happen overnight. Hopefully, it's not going to be too long a battle. But I'm sorry, I'll bring my house to Vegas and put it on a roulette table that you guys are going to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, it is a head scratcher for sure. So what I can tell you is that under Tom Erickson, our principal officer here at Local 120, we've got competent attorneys working on that. So I don't claim to get into that realm, but we absolutely trust our attorneys, and I can tell you that is still unresolved, right? Is that matter? So, but what the Brad is talking about is this health care. The costs to these members have gone up under this company plan to the point where they're so frustrated. And under General President Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters, and the way he has turned the International and the Teamsters nationwide, all across North America, as a more militant union and willing to stand up to this type of. I mean, we're not going to be bullied by these guys, right? These members, we're going to stand up. And so there's a strike and defense fund at the International. So when these men and women do finally say we've had enough and we're going to hold a picket sign instead of working under your plan, they're going to be taken care of, right? There's going to be strike benefits if they do have to walk those picket lines. So just rest assured that the Teamsters will take care of these members, and we will
Absolutely.
have their back. So.
And by the way, just to show how dedicated these people are to wanting to receive what they were promised legally in writing in an agreement, they're not only willing to picket and strike, they're willing to do it in December in Wisconsin. And I've lived in Wisconsin. I lived there in the summer. I lived in Milwaukee in the summer. Great Summerfest, by the way. And I lived there in the summer. But I got to tell you, and I'm from Boston, that you guys beat us in winters and resilience and stuff like that. So this is not an easy task or an easy decision, by any means, but this is how important this is to them. And I mean, come on, you're talking healthcare and pensions, hello. I also wanted to ask you, Scott, Foremost Farms seems to be pushing for similar reductions at their Richland Center, if I'm saying that wrong, plant and Lancaster plant. And Actus is moving to slash workers and their benefits and protections. Do we see some foreshadowing and some concern coming down the line at those two other plants? Is there a concern that Foremost may sell those facilities in the future as well?
So 100%. I mean, that's exactly right. Those two facilities, as you could imagine, the trust has really been eroded there. I mean, is sort of the safe way to say that. Um, the there is successor language. There's negotiations going on actively. I think we're close to setting up a vote for those locations with some successor language that has been enhanced to prevent that company from
Mm.
doing what it did to these workers. So I think right now we're waiting on votes at those two facilities. But I mean, this affects customers all across Western Wisconsin. It affects the farmers. And we know right now what farmers are going through in this
Yes.
country nationwide, not just in Wisconsin. And so where are these guys going to bring their milk if there's no facilities to bring them to? So I think this is just it's an indication of what's going on, not just in Western Wisconsin. We can look at it at the small picture at the local level, but you could expand this out nationwide.
Oh,
This is what
absolutely.
corporate
There's always a
America's
domino
doing,
effect. Like you
right?
mentioned, the farmers who supply the milk to the facility, but what about the consumers who are putting that high protein, that whey protein into their products? The small and large businesses that are using that protein. Come on, how many of the baristas are putting some whey protein shots into those coffees?
Everybody should be paying attention to what's going on here right now and look at it. It could happen to their doorstep next.
Absolutely, and that's why we're so glad that you guys took the time to be with us today. Teamsters Local 120, we have Scott Kroona you've just heard from, and Brad Lusk. Scott, Teamsters Local 120 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he's the business agent for them, as I mentioned. And Brad is a first shift flex operator at Actus Nutrition. They're the bad guys right now because they're trying to take away and chip away and entirely change healthcare benefits and the healthcare program for these wonderful dairy workers in Western Wisconsin. And Scott had it 100% right. That you may say, well, Leslie, I don't live in Wisconsin, I don't work in the dairy business. It affects you. It affects you. You're a farmer, it affects you. You use whey protein, it affects you. You buy any product where anything has dairy, hello, it affects you. I'm Leslie Marshall. By the way, check out their website if you want to learn more about this or how you can help and support them. Go to teamsterslocal120.org. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and be safe. It's crazy out there.